This is the training for the Chuck Cramer high altitude window over Mount Lemmon here in Tucson. The high altitude window is named in honor of Chuck the Thermalator Cramer himself, who loved flying gliders and loved soaring and getting up there and soaring with the birds. So we are renewing the Chuck Cramer high altitude window. There are two altitudes that are involved. The Chuck portion of it is over Mount Lemmon and goes up to flight level 210. Remember, we're going to be above 18,000 feet. We're going to be talking about flight levels. This is intended primarily for good thermal days during the summer when we can get to higher altitudes above Mount Lemmon. And then there's there's the Cramer portion, which goes all the way up to flight level 240 and is primarily intended for being able to fly in the wave that happens over the Catalinas at Mount Lemmon. Both of these can be used to complete the diamond altitude portion of a diamond badge, and they can be used in conjunction to fly with both high altitude thermals and wave. So this activity was originally undertaken by Bryce Sameter, and he worked extensively with the Scottsdale FSDO to get this wave window opened, and went through a significant amount of work with he had to coordinate between both the Scottsdale FSDO as well as the Albuquerque Center, and also with the 162nd Fighter Wing out of Tucson International, training for the F-16s that fly in the MOAs, the military area operating areas north of Mount Lemmon. He was the original holder of the certificate of waiver, but I will now be taking over those responsibilities. So here is the Chuck area. Okay. As you can see, it is over Mount Lemmon and goes up again to flight level 210. You see the coordinates that create this area there. It is north of class Charlie, just barely touches it, and then goes beyond that. We haven't seen many thermals that happen very often, but it is a possibility, and so we want to make that happen. As you'll see on the next page, you'll see that the Cramer portion extends beyond this, so that way we have our complete high altitude window. So our high altitude window for the flight level 210 portion, the Chuck portion, extends ahead of this, of the blue area, and over Mount Lemmon, and then continues along with these parallel along these lines. Okay, and then the higher altitude Cramer portion here, flight level 240, goes further downwind of that. The entire area is about 14 nautical miles wide, and if you count from the beginning of Chuck to the end here of Cramer, it's 38 nautical miles long. Okay, again, the coordinates here are in that. And this is south of the MOAs that occur to the north, Jackal and whatnot. So again, like we spoke about up front, the Cramer portion is intended to be able to use wave that you can routinely see occurring off Mount Lemmon and the Catalinas. You can consistently see during the winter months the lenticular clouds that form in the area. So the hope is that we can use these to get some really good diamond altitude flights so that way people can get their diamond badges, which is otherwise a bit difficult to do in Arizona. So as we go forward, there is going to be some education for a lot of members. The very few of the members here have experience with higher altitude flying, particularly in wave. There'll also be some planning that will be involved to make use of it. Days that are better for wave are not good for thermaling generally. And so you may have to stage at remote locations like San Manuel or Benson. And then in the same way that days that are good for wave don't have like thermals, well, you also are going to get windier conditions because you need that to form the wave to begin with. And so we will have people that are operating in the wave will have to be able to take off and land in those higher surface wind conditions. Okay. But wave flying is a wonderful way to get higher than you really can any other way, and is a really exciting chance that we have in the club again. The old wave opportunities we had were down to the south when the club was based at Ryan Airfield. Since then, in the 20 years I've been a member, we have not had a wave camp or been able to fly the wave from any location. So here's Carrie from Mythbusters, and just want to remind everyone that just because they tried to do a duct tape airplane does not mean it's okay, or that it's a compliant way to fly an airplane. So we have to think about our aircraft, airworthiness, and what it is going to take. So first of all, for the aircraft, they need to be obviously airworthy. You are required to have a transponder with mode C capability, altitude reporting, two-way radio, because you're going to have to talk to Albuquerque Center before you enter the wave window, high altitude window. Current sectional chart, moving map GPS is a requirement to be able to stay within the specified confines of the Chuck or the Cramer areas. Does not have to be certified, but does have to be moving maps so that way you can stay inside the appropriate areas. And then we have to comply with all normal FARs. We have to, except for 91-135 and 91-225, which are normally flying IFR only in Class Alpha airspace and having an appropriate ADS-B out with the extended squitter capability, which is normally required in Class Alpha airspace. We will not be required to have that type of ADS-B out capability. So in order to fly this safely, there are requirements placed on everyone that's doing it. That's why we're having this training. You must become familiar with local terrain features. And we want to be able to look at the visual references to do it. For example, the backside of the Cramer area has this line of windmills here. It's on the chart. They're very much there, and it runs almost directly north and south, and so it's a good visual marker. Look at both the sectional as well as the Google Maps images, satellite images, to see what the terrain looks like at these areas. Okay, we're staying here. You see there's an odd little cutout on the back side of Cramer. That's for the Victor 1-6 airway that goes past it. It also is offset here from the other airways. So the creation of these boxes was very intentional. Again, you must have Movie Map as an aid to stay within the bounds of the Chuck or Cramer airspace. And when we're before entering the airspace, you have to be cleared into it by Albuquerque Center, 134.45. And this is an ATC frequency that other users will be using. So it's not a party line to brag about what altitude you're able to reach. You must enter and exit through the floor of the airspace, not on the lateral sides. While operating up there, you will not be on a flight plan. You will not be on, while you will have ATC there, you are responsible to see and avoid other traffic. And you will be given a discrete transponder code before you enter that area, and that's what you have to squawk. So if you're not used to changing your transponder code, if you're normally used to just using 1202 VFR for gliders, you're going to have to learn how to easily change it, and you'll get that in the air. Okay, again, you must receive clearance from Albuquerque Center. Also, you will not be on a IFR flight plan, so there will be visibility requirements up there. This is standard Class E above 10,000 feet, 5 F-111s. So think to the F-111 fighter jet. They're fast. You need a lot of space around them. Okay, 5 F-111s, 5 statute miles visibility, and cloud clearance needs to be 1,000 feet above, 1,000 feet below, and 1 statute mile horizontally. 5 F-111s, same as the Class E airspace above 10,000 feet rule. Also note, above 10,000 feet, there is no speed limit for other aircraft, so they can be going very, very fast. We also have to comply with all other CFRs, all the other FARs. At this time, we cannot operate in either Chuck or Cramer if the Tucson altimeter is below 29.92. There has been a concern in the past that there might be some distance between below flight level 180, where aircraft might be transiting the area, where they may not be talking to Albuquerque Center. We are working on that limitation, and we are going to try to get that. We're trying to get that changed. That'll be published as an update to this as needed. In the event that either Albuquerque or Tucson has to recall the airspace, aircraft have to exit in a safe manner and as quickly as possible out of the airspace if it becomes necessary. And then also you must only operate during daylight hours in the Chuck Cramer area. Seems obvious, but it was specified that way. As of right now, I will be the holder of the certificate of waiver. And so I will be the responsible individual initially, but I can also designate other people as time goes on to be able to open and close the window as necessary. We are going to have the annual review of the procedures and safety recommendations for how to operate in Chuck Cramer. That is this training. We'll also be having a quiz to make sure that everyone understands it, and that will be sent out. So as part of that, I'm responsible, just as Bryce was in previous years, for creating the list of participants. And we will be doing signatures. They can be electronic signatures now according to the Scottsdale FSDO, and we have to make sure that you're briefed, and that's why this training is being recorded, and you will be having a quiz to ensure that you understand the requirements. As I was mentioning earlier, only the responsible individual or someone delegated by them can activate and deactivate the Chuck Cramer airspace. And that person is responsible for reviewing NOTAMs, TFRs, special activity that might affect operating in the Chuck Cramer area. We have to, not only do we have to open the area with the Scottsdale with the Albuquerque Center, but we also have to notify them when it's no longer needed. And if there's any reason to do it, the responsible individual or delegate must halt or cancel activity in the Chuck Cramer area for safety or property on the ground or air when it might be in jeopardy, or if there's any other failure to comply. So the procedures are looking good. We've got all these procedures. How do we actually put that into practice? We've got to coordinate with a number of different organizations, people that would be transiting that area, and also with air traffic control. So we've got the first thing is, if everything's looking good, if the weather's looking good and we're planning to use it, first we need to coordinate with the 162nd Fighter Wing scheduler to see if they're going to be using the Outlaw, Jackal, or Rustler MOAs. If that's is okay, and we're going to be okay on that, which oftentimes we're going to want to use this on weekends when they wouldn't be using it anyway. If the airspace is available, the responsible individual or their delegate then will contact Albuquerque Center supervisor to request it. We need to do it at least 30 minutes prior or 4 hours prior if we expect the usage of the high altitude window to last for more than 3 hours. Prior to takeoff and contacting Albuquerque Center, we need to monitor the Tucson ATIS to make sure that the pressure, the altimeter setting is 2992 or above. And then each individual pilot, as they go out, will need to request clearance to enter it on Albuquerque Center. They'll also have to, you'll be given a discrete squawk code, and you are expected to continuously monitor 134.45 while you're up there. While operating in there, if Albuquerque Center or the Tucson Soaring Club has to recall the airspace for a safety issue, everyone needs to get out. And as always, regardless if it's a normal exit or if there's a recall, always exit through the bottom of the airspace. And then when we're done for the day, the responsible individual or the delegate needs to recontact Albuquerque Center to say that the airspace is no longer needed. So again, let's talk a little bit more about high altitude flying. The transition altitude of when we change our altimeters in the United States is 18,000 feet. So at 18,000 feet and above, we're now in the flight levels. So you set your altimeter setting to 2992. You're now looking at pressure altitude up in the flight levels. That's what the airlines use. That's what everybody uses when they're up at those altitudes. And then just because your altimeter might say it's set to 2992, understand how that affects your flight computer. Each flight computer may do it differently. Is it using pressure altitude? Is it using GPS altitude? Make sure you know what altitude source you're looking at to making sure that you're staying inside the bounds of the high altitude area, and also that you'll be able to get the altitude you need for your for any type of badge flights if you're doing gold or diamond altitude flights there. Safety wise, remember the oxygen requirements for flying above 12.5 for 30 minutes. You need to use oxygen. Above 14,000 feet, the pilot must be on oxygen, and above 15,000 feet, any passengers have to have oxygen made available to them. The higher you go, the more oxygen you're going to use. It's just that way. So make sure you know how your oxygen system works. Make sure it has been tested recently. There are places in town that will do the hydrostatic testing to make sure it's safe in the last 5 years. And then also make sure you know how to fill and use your oxygen system in flight before you get to those altitudes where you need it. The useful consciousness at flight level 240 is rather short, 3 minutes. And even if you're descending at 1,000 feet a minute, to get down to 10,000 feet could be 14 minutes. So think about that before you go up there, okay? Understand how you would get down from a high altitude and where you would go as you descend. The easiest way to do it is to take off with a full bottle of oxygen each time that you plan to use it, and that you start using it before you need it, even below 10,000 feet. So that way you don't have to worry about it as you're trying to do all the other things of getting in position for the wave, getting in contact with Albuquerque Center, and setting up your instruments, changing altitudes as you move through the transition level. Okay. For avionics, the altitude that you will be reading out to ATC is the pressure altitude. That is what will be reported from your transponder. It will tell you what altitude it will tell you and ATC what altitude it is reporting out. I always have this on. It's a backup way to get an idea of your altitude. It's giving you pressure altitude, but and so it's automatically on 2992 for transponders. But that is the altitude you are reporting out. And so if you don't want to have a violation, make sure you're staying below that flight level 210 in Chuck or 240 in Cramer. Also, with your radio, okay, we have to maintain contact with Albuquerque Center. A lot of radios now are very sophisticated. You can have a standby frequency as well as the active frequency. A lot of radios will allow you to monitor standby, so that way you can be contacting with other be in contact with other gliders on one frequency, but listening to Albuquerque Center while you're doing it. If you do that, know which frequency you are actually transmitting on. And then also understand what the prioritization is for your radio. Is it going to prioritize the active? It usually would prioritize listening on the active versus the standby, but make sure you understand all the settings inside your radio. If you don't have one that can listen to multiple frequencies at once, you need to be on with center. That's just the rule. Again, we are talking to ATC, and so we are going to have to speak to them in their language. They do not recognize contest IDs. They want to hear your N number. If someone else is speaking, could be an airliner, it could be other traffic that's going through, could be another glider in the area. We don't say things like blocked. We don't, we just get we wait our turn to get our radio communication out, and then we don't block the next person either. If ATC refers to you by less than your full N number, then you can respond back with it. But they are going to expect that you call them with your full N number initially. And use professional etiquette on the radio. They are Albuquerque Center. It's not hey Albuquerque or hey Center. They're Albuquerque Center. ADSB out is a great safety tool for this. The certificate of waiver allows us to not have ADSB out in Class Alpha airspace. But you might read that and think, oh, I don't have to use my ADSB out. That's not entirely true. You don't have to have the extended squitter capability, which is normally required in Class Alpha airspace. But if you have ADSB out on your aircraft, it must be on. If you don't have ADSB out, that is acceptable. But if you have it in your aircraft, it must be on. If you have a 1090 megahertz ADSB out with Mode S transponder and extended squitter, you're fine. You're in compliance with that far. And you should absolutely have it on, and that'll be a great safety piece of equipment for you and the other aircraft in the area. So just going over some things for your badge flights. Know how your logger calculates altitude. Was your logger calibrated recently? Was it calibrated ever? Okay, you've got some data here for a LX nav, a Nano 3. I think we still have those in the clubhouse. Make sure you understand what altitude is being reported by your logger. If you need to do some math, do that on the ground before you take off. Don't be trying to figure out if you got to those altitudes properly while you're up there. Okay, so as you can see, here's a photo of some of that great lenticular type clouds that can form over the Catalinas there. And here is a pilot report from a 737-900 pilot who was complaining about wave flying over San Manuel at flight level 350. So the wave is definitely there. It is pretty powerful, and we expect some really good high altitude flights in the Chuck Cramer wave window going forward. If you have any questions, reach out to me, and I will also be sending out any updates or changes to the Chuck Cramer high altitude wave window, the agreement we have with the FSDO and with Albuquerque Center. In addition, I will also be sending out the quiz that you have to take in order to be on the list of users for the high altitude window.